What I'm picturing is that triangle of birth, death and sex in a circle called life.
Right.
And they're kind of the three key energies or passages or aspects of life. Yeah.
With regards to birth, death and sex.
Yeah.
What is it that sort of you address with them?
Contextually, I also see birth, like, as I say, it's an increasing awareness so that for those people who are actually interested in figuring themselves and their life out and aren't just going to hand it off to some ideology and never think again, for those people who are actually taking a journey in life and asking important questions, the questions of, and the mysteries really, ultimately it's the mystery of birth, death and sex and our existence. My first question to a person is, well, where are you now? What's presenting for you as a challenge or a problem or an issue, or you don't know how to get your head around it? Because on that journey, everyone's at a different place.
Yeah.
And I think most of the time, most people aren't focused on birth.
Are not focused on birth.
Not in the West.
Right. Okay.
And what we do with birth, to me, is just criminal, in that we've handed it over to the medical profession and treat it like an illness. I mean, you go to hospital if you're sick.
Yeah.
So for a pregnant woman to go to hospital to have a baby implies that she's sick, and the baby is the sickness. And then the baby gets born in the most inhumane situation imaginable. They go from dark to light, they go from relative silence to noise, they go from warmth to almost freezing cold in the theatre, operating theatre. The mother's usually drugged, the baby therefore comes out drugged. I mean, is it any wonder that drugs are such a problem in our culture when nearly everyone had their first drug experience before they popped out?
Right.
But hey, it's medically approved. Then the baby comes out, the cord's snipped far too quickly, so that statistics say 96% of Americans were brain damaged at birth through lack of oxygen, and then whisked away. Hello, that's your welcome to life.
Yeah.
My joke in England is it's like landing in Heathrow Airport. It's just overwhelming and noisy and chaotic and miles of passage. Like, what do I do? If you've ever flown into Heathrow, you know.
I have,
Yeah. So birth to me is just a catastrophe. And the core thing is it disconnects the baby from the mother. So again, we have just a plague of especially young people growing up with all these allergies. And no one ever makes the point that when a baby is born, it should go straight up onto the mother's left breast. And there's two reasons for that. The first one is that's the breast's closest over the heart, so the baby has been hearing the heartbeat from inside the mother and hears it from the outside, so immediately knows it's safe and this is mum. Plus it starts getting fed. And the first milk to come through in those first 5 minutes sets the immune system for the rest of their life, along with the baby and the mother making eye contact, sets a neurological pattern in the baby's body that triggers the immune system. Take that away, you're going to have dysfunctional immune systems, and that shows up with allergies.
Yeah.
So I'm going into a bit of depth there just to point out how inhumane and inhuman so-called modern scientific medical birth is. It's a catastrophe. But it also sets a template for the baby. Welcome to planet Earth, you're in trouble. And there's very little love here. There's a lot of pain and confusion. I missed the bit about the baby comes out, and what do? We grab them by the ankles and hang them upside down and assault them to get them screaming because it's good for their lungs. What?
Yeah.
What? If it's good for their lungs, then we should hit asthmatics. We should be punching asthmatics every time we see them. It's a crazy thought. And if you go to any culture that doesn't have modern hospitals, the birthing there is natural, it's healthy, it's beautiful to watch. Yeah, it's amazing. It's not treated as an emergency, it's treated as an emergency. Right? So it's a natural process. Guess what? It is a natural process, by the way.
Right.
So birth, oh man, it sets up a template for disconnection. Then we wonder why in our culture there's so much alienation, why we don't know our neighbours, etc., etc., why the divorce rates are, through the ceiling, because people don't know how to relate.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of disconnection that is supported from birth in our culture. Yeah? Because we're not supposed to be growing up as human beings in our culture. This is a consumer culture, so we're trained to be good consumers. And the best way to train someone to be a good consumer is give them a permanent feeling of emptiness. So then they go and have shopping therapy or retail therapy. Yeah? Consumer culture is antithetical to human culture.
Right. Yeah.
They're headed in two different directions. So the way we do birth is just crazy, and the beliefs behind it are crazy. Like Holland, for example, which is an extremely advanced modern country, something like 90 or 93% of all births in Holland are home births. And the 6 or 8% that are hospital births are because there was some complication during the home birth, or because they knew ahead of time there'd be a complication. But here you have a population where for about 50 years everyone was a home birth, and you've got the most liberal laws in the world, right? You've got, there's actually a government department that assesses before any law becomes, before any legislation becomes law in Holland, it has to pass through a government department that assesses its impact on the quality of life for people.
Yeah.
And then for communities. And it doesn't matter how needed the law is, if it's assessed to be detrimental to individuals' well-being or the community's well-being, it doesn't pass. So people come first.
Yeah.
Not products, and definitely not profits. Yeah. And of course it's an extraordinarily happy country, as is Finland and Sweden, which all operate along the same lines. So there's birth.
So I'm curious then about what you said initially, that people in this society usually look at birth the least. Do you think there's a connection there with the trauma you just described?
Well, a disconnection there with the trauma.
Right.
Yeah, it's like I survived that, I don't want to look at it. Yeah.
Right.
And equally, I mean, there's a really kind of mean double hit, because death is also denied enormously in Western culture generally, but much more so in America, so we have this huge emphasis on a youth culture, and everyone trying to do everything they can to live as long as they can, comes from a pretty complete denial of death. Most people have never seen their food killed. Most people have, most people have never seen a body, a corpse. Yeah, they're covered up, or they see it all prettied up in a coffin like it didn't die. It's alive. I mean, there's just, and apart from that, we project death elsewhere in wars, but it's just not dealt with well here. Or we hand it over to God and don't think about it again.